Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And he's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm board-certified criminal defense lawyer Bruce Rivers, board-certified by the National Board of Trial and Advocacy and by the State Bar Association of Minnesota as a criminal law and criminal trial specialist. Today we are reacting to Cain Velasquez. He is an MMA fighter, and this episode is actually brought to you by eForms, eForms.com. If you have a lease, if you have a business agreement, let's say your brother-in-law wants to borrow, $80 because he wants to go to the casino and get rip-roaring drunk and get into a domestic. Well, the only way you can get him to pay you back is to have an agreement, and you can get those agreements on eForms.com or a power of attorney. So you don't need to hire somebody like me. You can go to eForms.com and you can get your documents there. Now, Cain Velasquez, or Cain Ramirez Velasquez, is an MMA fighter. He's charged in the county of Santa Clara, California, with a number of charges. But before we get into what he's charged with, let's just see a little bit, before we get into what he's charged with, who Cain Velasquez is.
Short, crisp. Oh, look at that combo. Is down. Velasquez looking to finish. It is all over.
So he is the former heavyweight champion for UFC. He is a bad man. I mean, he is just a really, really tough guy. And my son Michael, he loves watching this shit, and he is a total MMA and UFC fan. And I have a hard time watching it because I'm a lover, not a fighter, personally. And I just think there's got to be an easier way to make a living. But these guys really pound the shit out of each other. And this guy, Cain, he is the baddest of the bad. And he's very well known. Everybody, and I think you guys kind of know about this case a little bit. But let me just kind of go into what he's charged with. He's charged in Santa Clara County with 10 counts. Velasquez is 40 years old, and he's being charged with attempted murder and 10 other gun-related charges. He chased down a guy by the name of Harry Galarte, and Harry Galarte is accused of in fact, he's not accused, he pled guilty of sexually molesting a relative of Velasquez. Galarte's mother owned a daycare, and rumor has it, or the complaint alleged, that this happened over 100 times, where he fondled a young child. So what did Velasquez do? Velasquez is charged with attempted murder. He chased him down in a high-speed chase and then shot into his vehicle. Velasquez followed Galarte's truck in his own vehicle on an 11-mile high-speed chase through the city of San Jose. He rammed the truck, and he fired a .40 caliber handgun multiple times into the truck. And in the car was his stepfather and his mother. And he shot multiple times, and he injured the stepfather. So we'll talk about what this all means here shortly. But he's being represented by a guy by the name of Mark Geragos. Mark Geragos is a pretty well-known kind of a celebrity lawyer. He represented Mark Peterson in that whole Lacey Peterson homicide that happened years ago. I've met him, actually. He's not a bad guy. But they've got a hearing scheduled, and a preliminary hearing where he thinks he's going to get it dismissed. It won't get dismissed, 100%. But he goes after the prosecution publicly. And I've never found that really helps you. They're trying desperately to run away from the fact that the system failed Cain, Geragos said. They don't want to get into that. They don't want to try a case that's divorced from reality. I don't know why he's a very public guy, and he's always, I don't always think it serves your client to go to the media. Sometimes it does, but most of the time I don't think it does. Because he also made a claim that there's a conflict where they're prosecuting Galarte and Velasquez, in the same office. There's no conflict there at all. None at all. The public attacks on the prosecutor just don't help. So he runs the guy down, and he fires into the vehicle. So he's charged with attempted murder. He's shooting at an occupied motor vehicle, assault with a firearm. Let's see, what else? Assault with a firearm, because that's because you've got several different people in the vehicle. assault with a deadly weapon, 3 counts, and willfully discharging a firearm from a vehicle, carrying a loaded firearm with intent to commit a felony. Those are 10 charges that he's facing. Now, there was a case, I think it was in Texas, where some guy had molested another guy's son, and the guy went up to him and just blew him away in the courthouse, and he got next to nothing. There is such a thing called heat of passion. Heat of passion is where you are so incensed that you almost lose control of yourself. Classic example is you go home, you find your wife in bed with another man, and you shoot them both. That could be a heat of passion kind of thing. And that's kind of what this is, really. He's just incensed by the fact that this guy who is alleged to have molested people over 100 times to let out without bail, first of all. And think about this. Had the judge kept this guy in custody, and he's probably looking at some prison time. I don't know exactly what his case is like, but that's a pretty serious offense that requires registration and most certainly prison. But had he kept him in custody, sometimes, keeping somebody in custody for their own benefit, if it's a gang case or in this case where, we had some really hot tempers on the other side, it probably wouldn't have happened. However, you don't have the right to attack somebody because they somehow wronged you before. So you do have the right of self-defense or defense of others when somebody attacks you or attacks your friend or your spouse or somebody that you're close to. So let's say I'm standing there and I'm watching something happen and I'm trying to prevent it from happening. That's a defense of others. That's absolutely totally legal, and it's a viable defense. Garagos makes these statements in here that they're going to have this hearing, and if it doesn't get dismissed, we'll set it for trial. If it doesn't get dismissed, I don't know how it would get dismissed. The only way it wouldn't get dismissed is if they can somehow prove he was in Detroit. But you don't have the right after the fact to seek revenge, which is what this was. I had a case where a client of mine was raped by a guy, and then 2 weeks later, she sees him on the street and stabs him and gets charged with attempted murder. You don't have the right to do that, unfortunately. I mean, it's your impulse, right? I mean, of course it is. Somebody wrongs you, you want to take them out. I mean, or you want to get justice or revenge or whatever you want to call it. But legally speaking, you don't have the right to seek revenge. So they're going to have a pretrial hearing in September on this particular case. And after they have their pretrial hearing, the judge is not going to throw it out. I mean, it takes very little to get to a jury. You only need probable cause. And what's probable cause? Just alleging that a crime was committed and that you committed it. And it's just got to be slightly more true than not true. So one of the things that they'll do in this case is they'll have a preliminary hearing. And a preliminary hearing is when they put somebody on the stand and you're able to kind of cross-examine and you put on your own case. And if you can prove that it either didn't happen or that somebody was lying or just somehow show that it shouldn't go to trial, then it would get dismissed. One of the things that Garagos has complained about publicly is that they're not going to call Galarte as a witness, either at the pretrial hearing or at a trial, and they don't really need to. You have a Sixth Amendment right to face your accuser, and all that means is that any witnesses that are going to testify against you in open court, you have the right to cross-examine them. But Galarte is going to be just as available to Garagos as he would be to the state, unless he somehow pleads the fifth. But if he's already pled guilty, he doesn't really have anything to plead the fifth about. The other thing is that because this guy sexually molested a child, doesn't make it a defense. So you watch. What'll happen is the state will file a motion to preclude the defense from bringing that fact up. Because if it's not a defense, What the fuck difference does it make, right? And so if the defense is that, well, I did this because he did that, it's way more prejudicial, and it's not probative of anything, because it's not probative. It tells the whole story, I guess, from that standpoint, but it really is more prejudicial because, you know, what you would want then is basically nullification, and that's what Garagos is going to be hoping for. My honest opinion of this will get settled. It'll get settled for some kind of aggravated assault with a firearm, and he'll get a suspended sentence. That's my guess where this is headed. So, but he's a badass, and would you want that guy? Would you want that guy chasing you down? Not me. I'm a lover, not a fighter. This has been another great episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers. Michael Rivers is our producer. He puts this stuff together. I mean, he's a content genius, wouldn't you guys say? So we want to know more about what you think about Michael Rivers in the comments. So make sure you subscribe, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, sign up for Patreon. We're doing some good work there. And stop yourself snitching. We'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. 23-hour lockdown, police is at my god.